obviously hear a lot of noise in terms of how the civic's going and how people are being engaged with the whole process. And from a Wimshore Community Housing Group point of view, we were really keen to make sure that as far as possible we include as many residents and interested parties across Wimshore in terms of plans for the future. So just in terms of clarifying our place and also clarifying what we're talking about in terms of the presentation. So as you know, Muse and Manchester City Council are working together as a partnership, as a JV partnership on the Civic Centre, but as a development partnership in the wider kind of sites that are available for housing. And through that, we've got a bit of a collaboration agreement with Muse and Manchester, where we've been able to be the chosen housing provider for the social housing within Wimshore. And we're going to be talking today about 3 sites. Alpha House, which those eagle-eyed of you wandered down there will see it is coming down in lumps and bits and pieces at this moment in time, and that belongs to us. And then the 2 sites that we weren't anticipating at first, as Alan's already mentioned, were what we call C2, but it's at the end of the Birtles, and then the Brunton House site, which are opportunities. Paul's going to talk a little bit of how we got to where we've got to in terms of the mix and the what's likely to go on the site, and then I'll talk about the schemes in a bit more depth. I suppose the frustration for a number of us really is the ability for people to really get into nitty-gritty, but I suppose what I'll assure you on is when we've gone through the process of planning, then everybody will have an opportunity to kind of get involved more detailed in the plans that are put forward. The good news, which I hope will be good news to you, is all the properties in the first phase, which are about 400, will be social rent. There won't be affordable rent, there won't be shared ownership, there will be social rent. We've got some way to go in terms of getting the grant funding to make all that work at the moment, so we are looking to Greater Manchester Combined Authority and also Homes England to provide funding for us in terms of the grant funding there. And obviously it'll be Wimshore's own monies that are supported by rental income coming in from customers as well. So I'll let Paul give a bit of an overview in terms of why we've got to where we have in terms of the 3 sites.
So, I'm responsible for, at Wimshore Community Housing Group, looking after the tenants, the community side of things, but also making sure that we allocate the homes to the people that need it and that local connection. I also sit on the Housing Access Board, which is where Manchester Move the allocations is monitored, and I also chair the homelessness group in Manchester as well, so quite connected into all the demand issues. So I don't know if you know, that currently at the moment on the waiting list for Manchester Move, there are 20,000 applicants or households waiting for rehousing. That's gone up 2,000 in 1 year. Of that, there are 12,000 households or individuals on the waiting list that are in priority need. So last year, Wimshore Community Housing Group had 441 homes come empty. The year before, and on the choice-based letting system, we had 215,000 bids for about the same number. Last year, we had 275,000 bids for those 441 homes. Most of the reasons why people are now leaving our homes is because they pass. So that's the main reason why people are now leaving, or the tenancy is coming to an end. People aren't choosing to leave. That's the highest turnover reason now is because people die. Because we know once you get into social housing, if you leave it, your prospect of coming back into it is very difficult. And I know many of the councillors here are, you're seeing households and applicants where the demand is so great. You're emailing me or my teams, my neighbourhood teams, and we are just following the process because we have to be fair and transparent about who and how we allocate our homes. So we've got 14,000 homes. We know that Wimshore has an ageing demographic. So Wimshore has an ageing demographic. The last census showed 2 things, and if you go onto our website, you'll see what's called an Understanding Wythenshawe report on there, where we commissioned a piece of work looking at the most recent census with the census 10 years previously. There were 14 key lines of inquiry. One of those was around availability, education, opportunity, deprivation, but there were also things about health inequalities and demographics. So we know that there is an ageing population in Wythenshawe, and we also know that there's a growing younger population. The issue that we've got in Wythenshawe Community Housing Group is our older persons offer isn't very robust at the moment. So a lot of what we've designed in these first 3 phases is around addressing the older person's need and demand. You might say, well, okay, what about the other people that need the homes? Well, the idea is that actually we'll provide an offer in these sites that will mean people will move from the homes, the 3 and 4 bed houses, where their lifestyle and their circumstances have changed, and we call that right sizing, and they'll move to the older person's offer, which then frees up the 3 and 4 bed houses, which we've got huge demand for as well. So currently at the moment, for the older person's offer, we've got 2 shelter schemes of about 41 bed properties. We've got Village 135, which is 135 2-bed apartments, but that's for shared ownership, rent and outright sale. And then we've got some bungalows. We've got about 343 bungalows. That's it. That's the offer of our older person's offer. So what we're talking about is predominantly here, creating older person's community, a later living community, that will enable them to free up and move people out of the 3 and 4 beds. Their choice, they don't have to move, they have a lifetime, they have a tenancy for life. And where we ask people to move, we will give them £2,500 to move plus removal costs, or Manchester City Council will give them £2,500 to move. If Manchester City Council pay for the movement, they take someone from the temporary accommodation, of which there are about 3,000 households and families living in temporary accommodation, and they get the house. Just to reassure you about the allocations, because I know there's lots of politics around at the moment around who gets our homes and are they British people and all that nonsense. We have 50% of our allocation in Wythenshawe goes to our allocations, where it recognises local connection or local contribution, and it also recognises where there are children living in apartments or flats that need to move. And it also allows an under-occupation. So 50% of our allocations goes through our policy, which is an add-on to Manchester's policy, and then the other 50% goes through Manchester's policy. So we have 2 policies here. We're one of only 2 organisations, one Manchester or the other organisation in Manchester, that has kept 50% of its own policy. And I oversee that on the Housing Access Board. So what's it going to look like? So we know that on our waiting list at Village 135, we have 45 applicants waiting for extra care. We know that Manchester, through its housing needs survey, has worked out that it needs at least 1,000 new apartments for extra care. And it needs a substantial amount in the south of the city, which is where we sit. So we know there's demand. We also know that for those living with memory loss or dementia, our extra care at Village 135 doesn't meet that need. So actually, if you start to show memory loss in the Village 135 extra care, you have to move on. So what we've been talking to Manchester Adult Social Care about is creating an element in our dementia wing, in our extra care, that will meet some of that more moderate to medium to high dementia, which means people don't need to move on. So we're trying to create more lifetime homes. We are also talking to, and Ken just shared some of the videos that some of you have done. So I know there was an issue about properties for learning disability. So we are also talking to adult social care around a number of the apartments, and some of these blocks will go to adult social care for those clients coming from learning disability. And so one of the blocks has even got a carer's room designed into it, and we're talking about putting some in the later living scheme. So we're trying to appeal and broaden the offer as wide as we can for that community. We also know that there's huge demand for our 4-bed houses. So and there's a huge waiting list. So if you're in band 2 now and you're waiting for a 4-bed house, average wait time is probably 12 years. So you're not going to get one. So we're trying to get as much on the sites as we can. Andrew will talk about the 2 and the 4 beds that we've put on the site. So we're trying to be creative, and this strategy isn't just appearing here. If you go next to our office, the former Royal British Legion site, which we're currently building on at the moment, is building 14 1 and 2 bedroom apartments with a lift. You wouldn't put a lift in for a 14 apartment block. That's there to, again, persuade people to right size. So it's got adaptations and wet rooms and all the things that it needs. And then so we're trying to have a strategy where we're trying to free up the 3 and 4 bed houses, because we won't be able to build enough. But what we can do is, if we can free up and make best use of our homes, we can move people across and then allocate those homes to people on our part of the waiting list and manage to move. And then also in a lot of the design that Andrew's going to talk about, we're building what's called M43 apartments, which is fully adaptive property apartments, which means we don't have to go back when people's life changes or their needs changes. They're fully adapted. Now that costs more money, but actually what that means then is we try to reduce the need later on to put adaptations or adapt the homes, which is very costly, and there's a wait time for all of that. So we're trying to build all of that demand in. Manchester Health have done a housing needs survey on extra care, a housing needs survey on adult social care around learning disabilities and the demand there. We've got all the waiting list from the demand, and we've also got all the feedback that we're getting from our residents when we rehouse them, but also when they're waiting for rehousing. So all of that has gone into the design. So it's very later living, older persons orientated. I don't want you to think that it's just doing that. It's doing that for a reason, because the older persons offer and the later living offer in Wythenshawe needs to be more robust. Part of our strategy is always to do that, and also freeing up those 3 and 4 bed houses will meet the demand that's coming through that way into our properties. So pause there, that's enough. I could speak loads about demand and all that.
Can I just say, you must be having already conversations with residents to downsize, or how are these going?
So we do. You're right, we are. Our regulator of social housing requires us to do a tenant satisfaction survey every year. We've just completed it. We had an additional question on there that said, if you live in a property that you might be interested in right sizing, tell us. We've got 50 households telling us just from that process, and then my teams are going out through Living Well neighbourhood officers to get that information. We're working up to do a survey, and we'll talk to the elected members and everything, and we'll let you know. We're going to start to do a survey of who's living in our 4 and 3 bedroom households, to identify that, but also to identify where they've got young people that are living in the homes, where they might be might have health conditions, where if we've got damp and mould in those properties, we need to act quicker. So with the new legislation that's coming in, our WABS law, at the end of this month. So we're good. It's called getting to know you behind the door. People might think we're using that data in a covert way. We're not. We're using that to design services, but also to understand who's living in our homes, so we can try and persuade people to move, their choice if they don't want to, but then also so we can think about the demand for the future. So we're already trying to get that data. And so Royal British Legion next to the office is going to be a right sizing scheme, and the scheme on Greenwood Road near our property office, we have a number of residents going in there, coming out of 3 bedroom and 4 bedroom houses that will go into Greenwood Road, and then that will start to free up those homes.
Okay, so I'll jump into before Paul starts talking again. I will jump into the scheme designs that we are currently looking at. But I'll give you just this as a little bit of an overview. I'm sure all of you know it really well. But in terms of the sites that we've talked about, there's Brooklyn House here, which is the old Rhodes building. There's it's a C2, and it will become something else. I don't know what. If anybody's got any suggestions, please put them forward. But it's at the end of the Birtles at the moment, and we have Alpha House, which is here. For context, I've also put our homes that are right in the Civic as well. So our offices are there. Birchtree and Edwards are both right in the Civic, and also, particularly speaking about what Paul just spoke about around older persons, we are focusing on older persons here. We've got our shelter courts here and here, Fredfire and Ken College, and what we hope to do is create a little older persons community there where everybody can get a lot more support going forward. So that's some of the original rationale in terms of the actual sites. And like I said, These two, we didn't expect to be involved in at this stage. We were expecting them to be further down the line. With the government announcement in terms of grant funding towards housing, social housing, they've been brought forward.
Just on that point, the original plan was for 400 homes, and now that there's all this additional funding, where are discussions up to about increasing the number of social rent homes?
Right, so in terms of the whole of the civic, the plans are around about 2,000 homes. We are happy that the first 400 are social rented homes, but I do think there will be opportunities across the other sites as well in terms of future social rented, because that's the preferred tenure of Homes England and government moving forward at the moment, which is great. And also potential for some shared ownership, so there'll be a little bit of a mix in terms of community as well. So we hope that's going to be part of it. It's kind of, it makes it easier to deliver these sites knowing we're going to get grant funding in there, rather than Muse taking the risk at the moment, perhaps with some outright sale sites that they might need to look at in the long term. And those of you at the consultation on Saturday, you will have seen some of this already. And this is the scheme that we're looking at on Brunton House. If I just flip to the plans here, and come across this side, because I've put two on there helpfully. So the intention is we've got the extra care here, which is we haven't got the totals on there, have we?
It was on the last time. That was about 109. It keeps fluctuating, doesn't it?
It does. It keeps moving as we go along. But within here, on the ground floor, there will be mainly the dementia units. There will be a lot of security around there and a lot of space that people can go outside and be safe outside in. There'll be gardens all around this area and through.
So there'll be a sensory garden where people can wander, because that's one of the. So all of that will be done in a secure way. So we've been designing that with adult social care to make sure that we learn the lessons of other dementia schemes and that we build all of that in.
Well, they talk for night time.
Yeah, we're using the Stirling University are the leading think tank on dementia care, and that includes design of the physical buildings, but also the environment. And so we're using the Stirling University model to do all of this.
And the thing is, though, is carrying on from that, all the sites, we're very conscious that we make sure that they are secure, safe for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, that one on the end of the Birtles is going to be one of the initial challenges, you know, as we have residential in the middle of the shopping. And we all know the issues of having past, so it's really important to look at that safety. This block will be an older living block, so we're talking sort of 55 plus, but not with the kind of care needs that people need to move into the extra care, but able to use facilities and able to have that supportive community alongside them with Frank Price Court and the extra care as well. We were determined to try and get some family houses in there, and so far this is the only site that's come forward that we can do any of that. So we've got some 2 and 4 bedroom houses along here. We've tried to maximise it, and we are very conscious that how we design those and make those work and they become part of the community is really important. But they kind of, most of you know, come down Hallfield, and then we've got our Scholasfield scheme there. So we'll have a natural linkage to Scholasfield as well in terms of the family housing we have there. This is a bit more detail of what we've got. So as mentioned, the dementia blocks are here. They're different colours, which you can happily have a look at after, are mainly between 1 and 2 bedroomed. We're also going to have a large communal area here. Paul's already mentioned there'll be a dementia lounge specifically for our dementia's customers, and then there's sort of all the stuff around office space and care work space and laundry and all that kind of thing as well. So it should be a really exciting scheme.
Yeah. So
not as big as Village 125, because that's
So the other thing we're in discussions with is go on.
I'm really interested in the older people's division, as you know.
Yeah.
Advocating for
Yeah.
older people for very, very many years. I wonder, have you worked with age regulator at all on these plans?
So we've been doing that through adult social care. The other organisation we're working with, this may or may not come off, is we're working with Age UK. For these 3 apartments, they'll go into planning permission as apartments. You know, Age UK are based at Crossacres at the moment, and if you've been in that building, it's reached its end of life, is the way I'll be describing it. We are talking to Age UK about them running a day centre in here as well, and potentially running the catering and doing all of that here. So it won't just benefit the extra care customers. If the day centre comes off, those customers that go to Crossacres will come here as well and use the facilities and daycare. They've got experience of doing that. They do it in extra care in Brunswick at the moment. So they do that. So we're talking to them about that. The planning will go in for these 3 apartments, but they're being designed so ideally we're in quite detailed conversations now with Age UK and their trustees, but we're hoping that that will become a day centre as well.
And then the question for is how do you prevent this block of older people's properties becoming, sorry to use a horrible word, but becoming like a ghetto of older people?
Well,
older people don't only want to mix with older people.
Absolutely.
Older people are vibrant and don't all have dementia.
Yeah.
So how are you going to add life to this?
Well, so there's 2 ways we want to do that. One is around through the activities that happen here in the day centre. The other thing is its proximity to the civic zone, because literally across the road, isn't it? Is that those customers will then be able to use all of the facilities that you've talked about a bit about already at the civic, but also the daytime and nighttime coming. So for the first time, just giving it, we haven't put hairdressers in here. The extra care, the village has got a hairdresser because we don't need to do it because we want that to be, we want people to access the centre and all of those sorts of things. And we'll also bring in residents. And then what we've been doing at the Village 135 is doing multi-generational stuff. So we want to do that as well. And Age UK have got experience of doing that as well.
And obviously we've got the families here, so we hope the whole community can start to work together. So.
Can I ask a question? Do you know, the care and it's going to be for people living with disabilities. So will you be renting out to like local authority so that
we'll have an arrangement with Manchester.
Yeah, so
that's what we're talking about.
Will it be with Manchester or will it be with other agencies as well? Or?
Well, no, I think so. The adult social care and the bit around the learning disabilities and that we're thinking about giving. We've been talking to them about them taking a number of apartments. At the moment, they rent a number of houses off us. So we'll be working that through Manchester City Council. Now, it's up to Manchester City Council. They commission the care for whichever client so they'll commission the extra care, like they do at the village, the care for at the village, but they'll also decide who the care provider is for those citizens, they call them, that go in there. But it will be, the arrangement would be with us and Manchester, that those apartments would meet that need. They would then look after the care, depending on what the citizens need, and that's what we would work through.
And I suppose just to make clear that this will be enclosed for the residency, even though the public will be able to come in through the main entrance, it will be enclosed. So all those issues around security, hopefully we've addressed. I think just to answer Steve what you said about getting involved in the later design, I think there's a lot in terms of the detail of the design still to get people engaged with, and that's what we're really interested in, even down to thinking about the communal areas and what they look like and what people want in those communal areas. So yeah, there will be opportunities for people to get involved. So I will move on to the other two.
Just to let you know, you've only got 20 minutes.
I know. Oh, I've got 20 minutes. I didn't
Yeah,
got
I'm
that
giving you an
long.
extra 5 because we started late.
Thank you.
Can I talk more about housing need then? Okay.
So this scheme, originally we were going to develop it ourselves, and it did look a little bit different then. Having said that, it's been encouraged through the Muse and Manchester partnership that Muse will actually build this, but we will still own it and manage it obviously into the future. So this is Alpha House. And then this is the scheme at the end of the Birtles. So you'll see there's quite a lot of proposals around landscaping, and one of the things I've been to today is to talk about with the planners specifically about how that integrates into the community space externally, but also how we keep those people safe in their homes, because it's going to be quite a different time now with people moving right into the centre. So here, this is the Snappily Core C2, answers on a postcard. But it's easy to talk about this really. So the plans are that we will have a lot of this space here will be sort of ancillary space. There are 3 commercial units here that will front onto the Birtles itself, so to keep everything in line with what we already have. And then we will have flats on the ground floor here. There's quite a lot of detail now that we've put forward in terms of landscaping those and some defensible space. And then there will be, again, a number of floors on top of that. So that will be another 72 homes for local, 76 homes for local people. And that's not older persons, that's more sort of general needs. Yep. And we're hoping, that will be available for some more working households as well. So again, people who've got an opportunity, those people who are working and desperately in need of social housing as well, are able to move into those blocks. And then if we go on to Alpha, I'm not sure if this is up on Saturday, but it gives you kind of a bit of an idea around how this is going to work. And it's about what we've tried to do here, because it is a dense site, is to create some internal space for those customers. All the properties will have balconies. We're very conscious when we went through COVID, it was really difficult for those people who didn't have any access to external areas, to kind of have that fresh air and just somewhere to wander. So we've been really clear with the Muse in particular that we want to retain that middle as an open area where people can go and enjoy those gardens. So this one is 125 new homes that will be, and again that's going to be a little bit of a mix. We've got we've got an apartment on the ground floor, Paul says, that will provide a carers accommodation on site as well, so that's obviously working with adult social services. There again are on the ground floor are a number of wheelchair accessible that Paul talks about, and all these will have wet rooms. So thinking about sustainability into the future, which is not just about people's access, but it's also water usage and stuff like that as well. This is likely to be quite a green scheme in those terms. Some solar panels on the roof, and to be able to minimise customers' bills in those properties. Got to have conversations with MAG in terms of Manchester Airport Group in terms of that, because it can cause a bit of problem with the glare when the airplanes are trying to land, so we need to make sure that those two work together. But we feel that will have, certainly long term, will be a really good sense of space onto Roland's Way, and then when the further blocks come along that Muse develop, we hope to create some real nice streetscapes through there, so people feel like they're in a residential area.
Sorry, it's a bit random actually. I've just noticed the size of the building. Is that bit short of the south facing, like the garden?
It is, yeah. So it's to get some more light down into the garden spaces. Well noticed.
I'm just wondering, will there be any indoor communal space on the ground floor, or like a space for people to... We've been doing some work on AD Welling Place in Hume for quite a few years, and one of the biggest challenges during COVID was people living in blocks where they had nowhere to I mean, I know we weren't supposed to be together, but it was very isolating. Yeah. There was no, when you're older, you can't sit outside as much, even in the summer it gets cold.
So there's a small area, but it is more of a kind of, we did have a number of units on the ground floor that we were going to use for more communal space. We've still got a decent sized kind of communal area and concierge area downstairs, not as big as it was, but that's on the basis that everybody will have balconies, which I know isn't perfect either, we're not necessarily communicating with everybody, but we will have this internal space which we fought quite hard to retain for people to be able to use that. And some of that will be covered, so they can use it at different times of the year as well, although in the middle of winter it might be a little bit cold. It's good to have it.
I'm just going to ask about the balconies. What sort of size are they?
So we did have a lot more external balconies on here originally. So the ones that are external at the moment will be around about 4 square metres. They're not massive. There are quite a lot of Juliet balconies as well in there. So
what's the proportion of the kind of Juliet?
Well, we're pushing back, so we're hoping to get around 40-60, so 60 Juliet, 40 external balconies.
We've been balancing the requirement to get more homes onto the sites. We've been balancing trying to reduce the service charges, which are paid, social rent is rent plus service charge. So if we design more communal spaces in, there's more service charge implications. So we've tried to balance that, but we've also looked at what we've got available already at the extra care that will be nearby, and residents can use all those facilities. But we've really been trying to balance all of those things, and it's not easy. So that's what we've been doing, certainly on Alpha, but we've been insistent that the podium, as we call it, has to be there, because our feedback from the engagement we did during COVID for our customers living in our high-rise living was exactly that. Yeah.
And obviously Alpha is directly across from the Civic, so it has and it's not aimed specifically. It's certainly not aimed specifically at older persons. It's more general needs.
Yeah.
So right.
Yeah. We've got.
Did you look at the possibility of roof gardens?
We are. At the moment, there's some issues about the loading on the scheme,
Yeah.
but we are exploring that option in terms of gardens.
We've also, and this has been a revelation to me, we've also had to be, obviously we're engaging with Manchester Airport, so on all of the sites we've had to look at the environmentals on the sites given the flight path proximity and trying to build all those things, and that includes designing water ingress and runoff and all those sorts of things.
And also designing this, I hate saying this, but designing birds out to some degree at a house. So
which is,
it's trying to get them on the ground, get them low down to the ground. We've got the birds, we just want to get that down.
yeah. So which is interesting, because we're in the airport. The airport is in our community. So, but we have to acknowledge that. So the architects and the teams have been working with the airport about what they want and don't want, and what might create issues for the flight path and etc.
And not having swarming birds as well,
Yeah.
because obviously, the starlings are all flying together. It's quite a big construction for an airplane that's coming. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It was a question about the roof actually. I just wondered why that shape, and I can see the roof slightly sort of sloped, but what's the sort of lifespan of that sort of roof, and why have we gone with that one? Because obviously most roofs kind of look like this and rain throws off. I'm just wondering if
So it's probably a bit deceptive on this drawing. They're all flat roofs. So the rainfall comes onto the roof and then it is led away by internal guttering and down the outside of the building. And then we've got sort of attenuation tanks and captures of water, and also landscaping to rain gardens and etc. to try and help out with that. So it's the solar panels that kind of give a little bit of a use.
I just wondered why that flat roof shape is.
Well, the issue we've had is do we put the podium there or not?
Yeah.
We want the podium there because we want that sense of community. So that's what we've been working with our assets and the architects is to design that to enable a sense of community space there.
And I think
I was just going to ask about parking.
I'll come back to that.
Come back to that in a minute.
I've only got 5 minutes to come back to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be very quick. So just to answer in terms of the flatwork, it's also a reflection of the buildings that are around it as well. So,
Yeah.
Sophie.
I forgot what I was going to ask, but I will just say again, I would really consider making that communal area an indoor space, because I'm not saying get rid of the green space, but like the bigger the community, if you have we've done loads of work on this, and if you have a community space that's big enough for residents to do activities together, it builds community and it brings people together, and there's so many brilliant health outcomes.
Yeah, I know.
And if it's only a tiny little room that only, I don't know, 10 people can fit in, you can't really do that type of thing, but it's making a massive difference in here.
I value that feedback. Thank
Yeah.
you. So we'll look at that. There is some parking under the podium, and there will be some accessible parking around the building. There will not be 100% parking, and part of that is obviously Manchester are quite keen to see the sort of 15-minute community and the walking and reduce the reliance on cars. There's also going to be the mobility club as well at the existing car park, which will be enhanced. So we're trying to encourage people to kind of use the parking spaces a bit differently. There will be some on demand.
I know.
When is it going to planning? Sorry.
So supposedly it's being submitted for planning on the this is what Vinny keeps telling us, on the 14th of November. There is a consultation event on the 16th of October, which is open for everybody. There is obviously as part of the, and we'll try and get some more comments out about that so it gets a wider reach. There is also the opportunity to comment on plans during the statutory planning consultation, so please do. I'm sure there will be lots of people who want to comment on it. We will also be doing some additional drop-in sessions with residents and customers over and above perhaps what Muse might be able to do, so we make sure that everybody's had an opportunity to comment.
Is that the planning application just for this building, or is that?
No, it's all three sites.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all going to go in hopefully together.
Okay. Great.
Start on site. If it goes to time, but please don't quote us on this, because my experience of developments is sometimes they don't go to time. Handover 2028-29, but that's a big caveat on that.
There is. So it's likely to start on site, or certainly Muse would like to start on site late next year. So we're talking August, September time next year.
And that's why Alpha's coming down now. As you can see, it's being demolished as we speak. Anything else? Any other questions?
Right, thank you. There's stuff on our website, so go to our website and have a look. There is stuff on Muse's website. There will be more coming along. There is a newspaper, don't know if everybody's got one, but they are around and being circulated. We're hoping to get more of those out. And yeah, look out for other consultation events that we'll be running and on the 16th.
And I think it's fair to say we're happy to come back and talk to you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're happy to talk to you and engage with you. Many of you are from our homes or our communities, and that's who we are, Wythenshawe Community Housing Group. We will engage with you and we will listen to you. We might not always agree, but we will absolutely, and when we think you put your planning suggestions in, and we will engage with you, I promise, and so we will do that as a housing association.